Hello and welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm Bill Hirschman, chief critic and editor of FloridaTheaterOnStage.com, and I'll be your host tonight. Let's meet our panel. Iris Acker, an actress, writer, and the producer of Spotlight on the Arts. Sitting in for Karen Stevens is Michelle Solomon, who is editor of Miami Art Scene and also a critic for FloridaTheaterOnStage.com. And filling in for multi-talented playwright Michael McKeever is multi-talented playwright Chris Demos Brown. Equally multi-talented is our guest tonight, Keith Garsson, who is a producing director currently engaged with some very unique productions at Arts Garage. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you for having me.
So let's tinker and overhaul some things at Arts Garage. Talk a little bit about, you've been with them how long?
Been with them pretty much a year now.
And you've had several different bases for your productions. What is different about Arts Garage?
I have been thrown out of pretty much every theater in South Florida.
Such an honest fella.
I actually started, a lot of people don't remember, I actually started at West Boca Theater where I met Jeannie at under Myrna Lohman back in 2001.
That's Jeannie Croft,
Jeannie
right?
Croft, our resident director. After 15 years, she's still speaking to me, so wow, that's good. And then from there, I joined the Boca Raton Theater Guild, which was all basically Neil Simon, Rodgers, and Hammerstein. Had enough of that, and we branched off and formed Primal Forces down at Andrews Living Arts, and got to do the kind of work we wanted to do. With Lou Terrell moving on to FAU, Aliona called and we talked, and she wanted to bring the Primal Forces mission right into Arts Garage.
Aliona is Aliona.
Aliona Ash, the president, right. And as she calls herself, the czarina of Arts Garage. So she has been a terrific support element. She said, pick what you want, we'll back you, no problem.
Keith, does Arts Garage have a vision?
Arts Garage has a vision. The vision is slowly fusing. We're trying to get to be more of the house of jazz and blues. The most popular concerts are the jazz ones, the blues ones. The most successful show Arts Garage has had in its history is the current one, well, not current anymore, but the Devil's Music, The Life and Blues of Bessie Smith, which is their most successful show.
Due to Avery Summers.
Due to Avery Sommer. I like to think it's due to all of us, Iris. It's a multi-collaborative.
At the time you had to extend that show. It was so popular.
We already extended it once, and now it will have shut down in April, and it just re-extended in May for 4 more weeks. And that's just at Arts Garage. We're in the works extending at other places. Mm-hmm. So clearly, the jazz and the blues is a hot button at Arts Garage, and that's what's successful.
Then how do we get to sex as a theme, which your first season was?
There is a urban legend that the word jazz also means sex.
Where is that written?
I just made it up.
Yeah. He improv'd on the spot.
I improv. No, but they do go hand in hand. Jazz is very sexy music. The idea that this season became all about sex really started from some humorous comments that were made. We really didn't say, okay, we're doing sex and then picked 4 shows around it. Sex with Strangers, obviously, in the title, but if you saw it, you knew that it had deeper themes on its mind. Reborning was not about sex, and Devil's Music certainly isn't about it. Now, Smoke, quite a different story. That's a very unique play, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the plays and hopefully eventually the education programs all fit the theme of jazz and blues, and the plays try to be a hipper, sometimes more millennial-oriented, baby boom-oriented theme. So that, you can, when the audience comes in, they can see that the plays thematically match the concerts.
So that being the case, how do you, I think that the most important thing any theater does is pick its plays.
Right.
How do you choose what you're going to do? Do you read hundreds of plays? Do you get ideas from people you respect? Do you look at the New York Times reviews? How do you?
Yes to all three. Also, I travel a lot for work. I have a software business on the side, and I have clients in many different cities. So whenever I'm there for a week or a few days, I ask the locals, what's your dirtiest, grungiest theater you have? And I go see whatever's playing.
Because this is what you aspire to.
I aspire to this. And many people have said, well, you were there quite a long time ago. So I try to find the most offbeat plays I can. For example, Smoke was done in Tribeca at a theater called The Flea, and it's one of those theaters where you walk down this crooked flight of stairs, and the actress herself is taking your little carnival tickets, and the seats are made out of this material. And this Smoke is the first show I'll ever do where our budget is higher than the original production's budget. And
That's its claim to fame.
That's its claim to fame. But that was I literally stumbled across that show.
Are there any theaters that just come to mind that you see Arts Garage fitting into the same mold of, or that you would aspire to have Arts Garage become?
Well, pieces of it. For example, there's the Fountain in Los Angeles, which is where Reborning was done, and then Second Stage in New York, which is sort of in between Off-Broadway and Broadway. Second Stage, which is where Sex with Strangers was done. And they all, and then of course 59th, which has had some terrific plays. There was one called Cuddles, which I dare anybody to not react to the ending of that. And it's when you look at these offbeat theaters, they all have one play out of their season that pushes it. So I thought, let me collect all the one-offs and make a whole season out of it at Arts Garage.
And yet your existing audience, or the audience when you walked in, was a relatively well-heeled, Delray Beach, upscale group of people who you had to basically educate, this is not the kind of play you're used to seeing.
Correct.
So how do you do that?
Well, the title Sex with Strangers certainly went a long way towards helping. There was a real method to our madness when Jeannie and I laid out the season. We thought, start with the hook, which was Sex with Strangers.
It's a great title.
It's a great title.
Really good title.
Great title. And
Great.
it's the first time in my life where Wednesday nights were turning people away.
Whoa.
Wow.
So it just went off the charts, and we didn't have room to extend it at Arts Garage, so we talked with Jeff Davis, who now runs the Palm Beaches Theater, formerly Plaza, formerly Florida Stage, formerly the Lowest Hope. I mean, but he took it for 3 more weeks, and it sold well there. So there was no problem conditioning people after that. Once you have them hooked, Reborning was an easy sell. Also, that Reborning inaugurated the Black Box, which Aliona wanted for smaller, more intimate shows, so that's only 100 seats.
Explain that there's now people who have been there
Right.
over the last couple of years. There's now 2 venues within the same spot.
So there was a huge storage room where the Puppet Theater used to be. And over the past year, they converted that into a black box. They built a stage, not too much smaller than the existing stage, but it's 100 seats, intimate seating in your face. So for example, the Bessie Smith show, the musical, would not have worked in there because that was table seating. But Reborning, a 3-character, 1-set, intense, hit you in the gut kind of play, that's what you want in there. And Sex with Strangers would not have worked with there. Sex with Strangers was a little more commercial, a little more broad. Even though it was only 2 characters, it was still a larger canvas. So we'll probably stick with that model, 2 and 2.
But sticking with Jeannie Croft, let's
course
talk
you
a
stick
little
with
about
Jeannie
that.
Croft.
It's like a marriage. Marriage with Arts Garage, and how is it decided who directs what? What's going on between all of you?
For example, when I saw Sex with Strangers about a year before we started rehearsing it up in New York. While I was watching it, I thought, if I ever get to do this play, and at the time I didn't know I was going to Arts Garage, I thought if I ever do this play, this is perfect for Jeannie, not perfect for me. I don't really have a concrete reason why I think that way. It just kind of hits you that this is a intense relationship piece. It really involves intricate detail between the two characters of a man and a woman. This is perfect for Jeannie. And of course, she got the script and she loved it. And casting was a breeze. The two people we cast nailed it in their auditions. So that one almost produced itself.
Do you have a core of actors that you're continuing to use, or how do you do your how are you seeing your casting?
I don't really like to think that way because then it discourages people from trying out and auditioning,
Good.
and that's not what we want.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Any theater or any artistic director who claims, I don't have a favorite, I don't have somebody I always use, I would question how true that would be. We all have our favorites, we all have people that are perfect, and of course, we have to admit we do pick things for specific
For
people.
people.
You see a play, oh, this person would be perfect for it. Now, the more people we work with, the more choices we have. But this season was very satisfying because except for Jackie Laggy and Clay Cartland, I had never worked with any of these folks before. Avery is obviously a local favorite, but I don't think Jeannie's ever directed her before, and I certainly never worked with her before. But this was great. And all these people are coming in. Hundreds of people from the Burt Reynolds Institute are coming in. Burt Reynolds was a guest at the show one night. And it's...
Burt Reynolds Theatre was a dinner theatre. Yours is a dinner theatre, only you bring your own. How does that work out for you, the cabaret style?
The audiences have been great. They've been conditioned. They learned over the 5 years, not to crunch and chomp during the shows. What happens is, the trick there, we found out, is get your sound checks over early. Let the audience in an hour ahead instead of half hour ahead. Then, it's the same thing as a movie. You buy your popcorn and it's all gone before the movie starts. So folks are pretty much done by the time the movie. They've been great. And look, if they're bringing 4 bottles of wine, it can only help.
Especially if they leave what's left.
Exactly.
We were talking a little bit before about the problem of cell phones and people texting during shows, and what's been your experience, and have you come up with any good ways to deal with it? Other than letting people drink a lot?
Well, and then they can't find their phone. Right. So we have been fortunate that hasn't been a problem. The cell phone issue, unlike the Willow where we weren't allowed to make a curtain speech, now at the Arts Garage, the curtain speech is critical because in addition to the upcoming plays, there's concerts every week. Right. So it's critical that we keep the audience apprised of that. But we make a big production out of holding up my cell phone, or Jeannie holds up her cell phone, and we say, ask the person next to you to please turn off their phone. And and it, you see, 200 people all shift in their seats and they, oh, right, I forgot. And I think the difference is if a living, breathing person stands up there and makes a production out of it, you got a better shot at keeping that under.
Yeah, I think you're right. What we've found at Zoetic is there are two groups of people who interfere with their cell phones. People who literally don't know how to turn their phone off and are horrified when it happens, and then people who are just kind of don't care. And the ones who don't care, I think, will respond to a human being for the most part.
Arts Garage has another advantage that a lot of theaters don't have with cell phones. And I didn't realize it until the last show, but the advantage we have is the reception in there is terrible.
Oh, that's good. That's perfect.
So the wireless just does not carry it, and the reception is terrible.
As long as the acoustics are good for the play.
I want to ask you about, theater. We've been talking a lot on this show is theater moving up, from Miami, and then we have a lot of shows in Fort Lauderdale, a lot of theater companies, and you're really kind of the trajectory of moving up. Is there really something happening in that area now? I mean, is the Palm Beach area kind of coming up more?
Well, there is a vacuum. You've got, we talked about this in an interview a few years ago. Right. You've got these niches, which is great. You've got Palm Beach Drama Works, which, they keep the classics alive. And then you've got the Maltz, ditto, on a much larger scale with the musicals. And then Palm Beach Drama Works is opening, there's a naked stage, so that they'll have an extension of littler works. And then, it's Arts Garage. And then you have the Wick, so you sort of have major musical north, major musical south. So there's a little bit of a vacuum for really offbeat works.
But do you find, this is like a do you beat your dog question, but
Yeah.
is that particular audience in Palm Beach
That's
for
a great
that
question.
kind of work?
That's a great. I am convinced, and I will defer to an expert playwright. I am convinced that audiences will come see anything that has gotten rave reviews or word of mouth. I think that the first few performances, the description of the play is going to affect whether they show up the first few performances. But once the critics show up, and once enough people have shown up and talked to their friends, I don't think it matters what it's about, as long as people said, you got to see this play.
Yeah, that's what.
And then they
the
say,
wonderful thing.
if I described it to you, you'd never go, but you got to see it.
But of course, it could work the other way too, couldn't it?
It could. It
So,
could.
Forget it.
It could. We had, we had to be very careful how we described Reborning, which was about these creepy dolls, and it was critical that people did not think it was, Bride of Chucky. Right. And the play was not about the dolls coming to life or the dolls representing some sick, twisted past. The play was about how a doll maker's profession affected her and the people around her.
Well, whenever we start to stereotype Palm Beach audiences, we keep forgetting that Florida Stage thrived for 20 years up in Manalapan with work that not only was not mainstream,
Right.
but in fact, people had no idea what they were going to see. They just knew there was a certain guarantee of quality at that particular theater, and that out of 5 shows in a season, there might be one they didn't care for or one that they were lukewarm about, but there were 3 that they would be really happy with,
Right.
that they knew nothing about
Yeah,
walking
but
in.
Bill, when he was at what became the Plaza Theater,
Right.
when it was Florida Rep there, not too many of those people followed him when he was at Kravis Center. They couldn't make that little trip from Manalapan to West Palm Beach.
That's complicated.
Wow,
That's
talk
another
about-
half hour, but there are reasons for that, yeah.
Yeah, this is about me, Iris.
Yeah, there's about
Speaking of you,
Lou had his turn there.
That's right.
speaking of you,
Yes.
and are you going to?
My favorite topic,
Yeah.
Michelle.
Tell us a little bit about just Keith Larson in general.
There you go.
He's on parole. It's okay.
Tell me a little about yourself.
For
We've gone
example,
through
is
that.
it true that you're a jazz pianist?
I am. I actually grew up, I came into theater through piano playing. And I was in the pit for a lot of shows, and then eventually got promoted to music director in college. And you can probably research this, but it was a chance to meet more women when you're the music director. And I'll say it helped, I won't say it worked. And then, when I got out of college, the idea of, I write financial software, was my day job. And the idea that I would ever be involved in professional theater was so far away, because I thought, well, they're the professionals, this is serious, this is their real job. I'll be happy to do community theater. That lasted a little while, and then you start to get frustrated with the quality of the work you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I eventually, at the time I went freelance in my software field, where the hours were my own, then I could start taking theater more seriously and start doing the work that we wanted to do, for example, Primal Forces.
And it grabbed you, and that's it.
That
You're
was
not
it.
letting go.
Well, the thing is that, as you get older, you're obviously less tolerant of doing the same old thing. And you have got to branch out and find new works and new outlets. And so Primal Forces was a real jumping off point for, it didn't matter. We weren't charging admission to most people. So since there was no commercial element to it, we literally could do anything we
you
wanted.
Yeah.
Primal Forces' home was
That was at Andrews Living Arts.
Andrew's Living Artists, which is
Bob
Fort
Nations
Lauderdale.
on it's right down. Actually, it's a sister of Empire of
Yeah.
David Gordon's.
It's
Theater.
down.
But it's in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been
Really
there,
sweet
Iris.
theater.
Oh, yeah.
It's a sweet little theater.
It's perfect for these intense baseball bat to the stomach
It's
kind of
very
dramas.
kind of garage, not like Art's Garage,
No.
but it has this kind of garage.
It is
garage
seriously.
element.
It was a garage.
It was a garage.
It was
Yeah.
a garage.
It was a garage. The back of the set was a garage door.
Right.
Now, one thing about Jeannie Croft, she always,
Just
was,
one?
Well, a million. And she's actually one of my favorite directors. She directed the one and only 10-minute play I ever wrote and did a great job at it. But she had so many original ideas. She had Women's Theater Project. Are you going to carry through some original? Or is Arts Garage going to start doing any original work?
Well,
I mean, your work is original, but it's stuff, I mean, I'm talking about maybe local playwrights.
well,
or-
the
Yeah, what about
Like this one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
was that the point of this?
This is a
Put me on
job
the
interview.
spot.
This
Well,
is a
Chris
job
to get his
interview.
Oh,
Well,
Michael
all bait
can't
and
come, so let's
switch.
get Chris. 'Cause aren't you a lawyer?
I am.
Uh-oh.
But we got to circle back to the jazz piano thing, but not before you're forced to answer that new play question.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I mean, we already talked about how I find things, but we mentioned before the start of the girl play, and that is something that Jeannie definitely wants to restart. And yeah, I mean, thing is, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. We're coming in flying blind. We arrive in May. We officially were contracted in May, and Aliona says, "You got 4 months to get me a 4-show season." Okay, not not a tall order, but certainly daunting. So I was like, all right, let's boil this down to just the 4 shows. We'll talk about readings and new playwrights and everything. That'll be a subsequent season.
You're
How's that for dodging it?
That was absolutely Trump-esque. You mentioned Sex with Strangers when we started a few minutes ago. What's interesting to me about that play and the way you described it is it has a very jazzy title, but it's a little bit of a bait and switch in the best way.
Absolutely.
Because it's
Yes.
actually a very substantive play about a
Yes.
very substantive topic. And once your audience is in the door and they get trained into that, then you can do reborning, and then you can get them back for something else.
Well, all 4 shows this season follow that pattern. It had the hook, it teased you into thinking it was about one thing, and then the author had much more on their mind
Right.
later on.
So, what is there a trajectory? I understand this is really a second season that's coming up, but
Yes.
where are you hoping to take it?
Well, first we got to dispel this image that the only things we do are things about sex.
Oh, shucks.
So we'll continue to do things about sex.
Okay, good.
But yeah,
Season 2 is drugs. Season 3 would be
Rock and roll.
That would be it. That would be the one.
And the
Yeah.
4th is roll.
actually,
Yeah.
we did hit upon something. We did find out that the audiences do want to see works about topics that are relevant to today. So, for example, Sex with Strangers being about online dating, online identity, more to the point. Reborning was about the technology that she used was not possible a few years ago, and Smoke has an underlying theme of millennial disengagement, we like to call it, and it's got a different style of writing, and the 2 characters in it are in their 20s, but I think our core audience, which tends to skew older, they'll like it because it's very different. It's a way of saying, how do my grandchildren speak? And this will answer that question.
And they don't understand them.
No.
And you have, when I'm there at the
I don't understand them.
When I'm there at the matinees, it's a bit of a senior crowd.
It is, except
And-
for you.
Is that sweet? Is that sweet?
He's good.
Yeah. He's so smart.
So I want to ask you one grad school type question, and I'm going to ask this at my peril. But how does I'm really interested in this because you and I share 2 loves, theater and jazz piano.
Right.
How does your background in jazz feed your or overlap with your love of theater? Or I guess more specifically, how does it influence your taste?
It does, because jazz tends to be a looser, acoustic, more raw, more gritty type of music. And those are the kinds of plays I like. I like the plays that start off with a beat, they grab you right away, and the rhythm picks up, and it keeps going, and then there's riffs in the middle where characters go off on some crazy tangents, all building to, a huge climax.
Do you know what advantage you have? being right off Atlantic Avenue with those wonderful restaurants, one after the other.
And the same kind of thing you're describing. It's like you kind of get in the mood when you're on Atlantic Avenue, almost to talk about what he's saying with this.
Sure.
This, I think your environment really helps, does it?
All the jazz clubs that are around there, and they feed right in. So we're trying to fit into the character of the neighborhood.
And do you get a lot of walk-ins?
We get a lot more than I used to at Primal Forces or Willow. We have a lot of people. Unfortunately, a lot of the walk-ins are a half hour late.
Yeah, because you start.
With cell phones.
With cell phones.
Do you keep your ticket prices reasonable?
Ticket
for
prices are
people?
reasonable. The highest ticket price is $45 for a front row seat. And then we have general admission and Gold Star, which is for the, I guess, coach seats.
That's nice.
So, is there something that when you started this, you didn't realize this was going to be?
Yes.
We got about a minute left,
Okay.
but what is the surprise?
The surprise is that the audiences are going with us.
In what sense?
We thought they were expecting a continuation of the prior regime. That is, Lou had set up, his type of, Lou
Yeah.
had set up a style of plays that he did. And here we are, Aliona was very clear. Apples and oranges, not comparing the two, do what you want to do. And we just shifted gears immediately, and everybody went with it.
And I think with you and Jeannie, it's so easy to shift because you're not of the same genre that he is at all. Although I've had the pleasure of working with both of them in the same production, which was very nice, being directed by Jeannie and produced by
Keith.
Oh, what's your name? Keith. That's right. What was the name of the play?
What a lovely benediction.
The play was Tale of the Allergist's Wife. I had such
Tale
a
of
good
the
time.
Allergist's Life, that's right.
Well, we thank you very much for taking us through this odyssey
for having me.
that had some sexual overtones. And we want to thank all of you for
Phil,
joining
you
us
promised
each
not
week.
to say anything.
We want to thank all of you for joining us each week. And we encourage you all, as always, to go to all the arts, but especially theater in the three counties. If you want to know what's playing in the three counties, check out FloridaTheaterOnStage.com. Otherwise, come back and see us next week on Spotlight on the Arts.